Hello, welcome all. Once again, please subscribe to our channel by clicking subscribe button if you did not subscribe. This is a session on or tutorials on VXWorks for beginners. We are proceeding to signals, interrupts and timers in front of ahead of shared memory, a topic which takes 2 to 3 sessions approximately to discuss. So let's get on to the signal straight away. Signal is a notification to a process that has occurred, that an event has occurred. Signals are sometimes called software interrupts. The main features of signal usually occurs asynchronously. The task does not know ahead of time exactly when a signal will occur. Signal can be sent by one task to another or to itself or by the kernel to a task. A signal is generated when the event that causes the signal occurs. A signal is delivered when a task takes action based on that signal. The lifetime of a signal is the interval between its generation and its delivery. A signal that has been generated but not yet delivered is called pending. So there are three courses of action. Task that receives a signal can take one of the three actions. One is to perform the specific system specified default for the signal, or ignore the signal, or cache the signal. Only these three possible courses of action is possible. In VXWorks we don't have default handler, and if sig underscore dfl is used, it will be ignored. There are courses of action. So signal and exception. Hardware exceptions include bus error, address error, divide by zero, floating point overflow, etc. Some signals correspond to exceptions. Example, SIG corresponds to a bus error on a 68K SIG FPE, corresponds to various arithmetical exceptions. We can speak this further, like the task being signaled immediately suspends its current thread of execution and executes the task specified signal handler the next time it is scheduled to run. The signal handler gets invoked even if the task is blocked on some action or event, that is automatic function restarting. The signal handler is a user supplied routine that is bound to specific signal and performs whatever actions are necessary whenever the signal is received. Upon completion to signal handling, normal task execution is resumed. Signals are most appropriate for error and exception handling rather than general intertask communication. Okay, so with the signals only we handle errors and exception um, very efficiently than our ITCs, our intertask communication, as we discussed in our previous chapters. VXWorks supports a software signal facility. The signal facility provides a set of 31 distant signals. The Wind kernel has both BSD 4.3 and POSIX signal interface, which we discussed in our previous video. POSIX, that is portable interface. A signal can be raised by calling kill method, which is analogous to an interrupt or hardware exception. While the signal handler is running, other signals are blocked from delivery. We'll see some functions like SIGAction. SIGAction installs signal handler to task like this. Int SIGAction, it takes these variables, sig number, struct SIGAction, and struct SIGAction old action. Okay, include file is signal.h. A SIGAction structure contains the following data elements. One is handler address and signal mask behavior flags. This is how we write a structure for SIGAction. So then comes signal handler registration. So to register a signal handler, signal bracket signal number handler. So handler is the routine to invoke when signal arrives. Signal handlers are typically defined like this. So signal handler which takes integer signal number, where signal number is the signal number for which sig handler function is to be invoked for. And then is a signal mask. The signal mask is a 32-bit value containing a series of bits set or cleared. If a particular bit is set, this indicates a specific signal is blocked. The function sigproc mask is used to specify what signals are blocked. Okay, we can see what signals are blocked by using this method. The signal mask, after signal mask, we have something called sig set or OPS, that is sig set operations APIs available. The signal mask can also be controlled by using the set ops functions, which are namely sig empty set, which takes the argument sig set, and sig fill set, which takes the pointer argument set, and sig address set, that is sorry add set. It takes two argument. One is sig set underscore t and a sig number, sig del set and sig member. You just can note down the variables it takes. We have two kinds of signals, right? What is one is Unix signals and VxWorks signals. So let's see how they are. I can say in the other terms Unix versus VxWorks signals. Automatic function restarting can install a handler to catch sig kill, to know sig chld and sig pipe or sig urge urg are available. So let's see one by one, like we will see the automatic function restarting. So just look at this figure. Signal is ignored if no handler is installed. Automatic function restarting describes behavior for a task which catches a signal while on the pend queue. The task receives a signal while pended. Task is removed from pend queue and made ready to run. When the task is the highest priority on the ready queue, it runs its signal handler for the signal it caught. After running its signal handler, the task is returned to the pended state with its originally specified timeouts. So we already discussed signals and exception. So hardware exceptions include bus error, address error, divide by zero, floating point overflow, etc. Some signals correspond to exceptions, which we discussed. So after this, we just finished with the maximum things available in the signals part of VxWorks. Let's move on to the interrupts. As I promised, we will go interior about the interrupts and handling an interrupt. So let me revise that. Like, interrupt allows devices to notify the CPU that some events has occurred, and user defined routine can be installed to execute when an interrupt arrives. And the most important thing is, this routine runs at interrupt time. It is not a task. Interrupt is not a This routine is not a task. So handling an interrupt is, once again, we have to consider three things, like a vector table first for interrupt and ISR, that is interrupt service routine, and user ISR. See, you can look here in this particular figure. Once an hardware interrupt occurs, handler will redirect it to the into the ISR handler. That is, it saves registers, call routine, then restores registers routine. Here in this case, my ISR is the routine. It is not a task. So don't confuse with interrupt and tasks. Interrupt is, we can divide it, interrupts and the priorities in the as follows, based upon the priority level from low to high. So So this is how interrupt level, absolutely system wide priority from low to high. On the lower part you can see task priority, which is programmable, so controlled by the kernel. The execution order is controlled by the kernel. Whereas on the top you can see interrupt level, which is hardwired, and execution is controlled by the hardware. Okay, this is a typical interrupt handling in a power PC. Look here, external exception handler at 0x500 exception vector table in the exception vector table, and interrupt number in this particular case is 3, and user based ISR1, ISR2, and all the routines it completes and comes back and then restores the registers and return to where it has occurred to. Okay, so connect system call. So we already saw this connect system call in our previous sessions. Int connect, which takes three arguments like inum to vec, some interrupt number, my ISR, and argument. So this thing we already discussed int connect. We have discussed a program also in the same context in the previous videos. Please go through it. We will straight away get onto the interrupt stack. Most architectures use a single dedicated interrupt stack. Interrupt stack is allocated at system startup. The interrupt stack size is controlled by macro int underscore stack underscore size in config all.h, which we already discussed, but must be large enough for worst case nesting. See, int level 1, int level 2, int level 5. So on the stack it is, this is how it would be arrayed, I can say, associated, I can say. Say for example x 86 CPU 32, CPU 32 or 68060 or MV 68000 and MC 68010 or CPUs which use task stacks for processing interrupts. So use check stack for to check task stacks for stack crashes. CHECK capital S T A C K routine. So interrupt stacks may be checked manually on many architectures. The variables vx int stack base and vx int stack end identify the ends of the interrupt stack region. This region, interrupt stack region. Okay. I repeat, interrupt stacks may be checked manually on many architectures. The variable vx capital INT stack capital S T A C K base B is capital, and vx int stack end, where all the first letters in the is capital, identify the ends of the interrupt region. Let's talk. We were talking about the interrupt to task communication, right? Interrupt service routine can communicate with user tasks via one is shared memory and ring buffers. So release of semaphores, writing to pipes, sending messages using message queues, which we already discussed in our previous sessions. So let's move on to the restrictions available. ISR restrictions, something like no tasks can run until ISR has completed. ISRs are restricted from using some VxWorks facilities. In particular, they can block, uh, can't call semtake, can't call malloc, can't call IO system routines, example printf. So the programmer's guide gives a list of routines which are callable at interrupt time. So please check through that programmer's guide available in your respective IDEs. Okay, keep your ISR short because ISRs delay lower and equal priority interrupts. Delay all them All tasks can be hard to debug. So these are all guidelines. Avoid using floating point operations in an ISR. So try to offload as much as possible to some task. I repeat, delay lower and equal priority interrupts. Okay, this is the first guideline. Delay all tasks can be hard to debug. Second important uh, guideline is avoid using floating point operations in an ISR. So they may be slow. User must call FPP save and FPP restore for it. So try to offload as much work as possible to some tasks. So work which is longer in duration, work which is less critical. So we should use within this interrupt service routine very lowest possible things like setting a flag or anything. If it is taking more time, load would be more. Say as a rule, interrupts should be short and fast, right? Interrupt service routine should be short and fast for execution. So we'll see examples in our implementation part. We already saw this, but we will see later in our implementation sessions. We'll straight away move on to the timers. Okay, we take up watchdog timers in this instance. Rest of them we already discussed, system clock and all. Watchdog timer is a user interface to system clock. Allows C routine to execute after a specified time delay and inexpensive method of error detection. Upon expiry of delay connected, routine runs as a part of system clock ISR. Process being watched must reset the timer before the timer expires, otherwise the watched process is assumed as faulty. A watchdog timer provides only an indication of possible process failures. Okay, so I repeat. So you can see these 3 points. Apart from that, I said like process being watched must reset the timer before the timer expires, otherwise the watched process is assumed as faulty. A watchdog timer provides only an indication of possible process failure. So how to create a watchdog timer? There is a method called wdog underscore id. Wd create returns watchdog id or null on error. To start or restart a watchdog timer, there is this thing called status wd start, which takes the argument wd id delay p routine parameters. Wd start causes watchdog timer routine to execute once when specified delay expires. To get periodic execution, the watchdog routine must call wd start to restart itself. Only the most recent WD start on a watchdog timer will run. To have multiple watchdog ISRs, you must use multiple watchdog timers. Okay. See, this is how we use watchdog timer. WDID, WD create, and for do it param inside this WD ISR. So WD start, give the arguments. Do it routine might poll some hardware devices, unblock some tasks, check if system errors are present. Right? We created and started it now. We should learn how to stop that. Right? Or one missed deadlines. To recover from a missed deadline, this is how we go through. See, in this function foo, we created a watchdog timer with a on a variable wdid. Forever wd start with parameters foo do work. If you want to cancel it, we can add a line called wd cancel wdid, which I did not mention here. So void foo isr int param handle missed deadline. Okay, To stop it, it's simple, like status WD cancel. So this is how the watchdog browser is after creating, but prior to activating the watchdog, the browser provides minimal information about that. Okay, after activating, more useful information is available. Right, you can see the initially state is out of queue, and then in queue, then number of ticks there, it would then routine address and parameter. You can see that. To stop it, that is, we just use to cancel a previously started watchdog timer, WD cancel ID. To deallocate status, WD delete, which takes an argument with WD ID. The watchdog routines are constrained to the same rules as ISRs. For example, they can't take semaphore or take semaphores, issue other calls that may block. The same rules for both. So there are something which we need to. I hope you understand the difference between interrupt and polling, right? So there are something called as polling issues. Can poll a task time or interrupt time? Interrupt time polling is more reliable. Task time polling has a smaller impact on the reset of the system. So to poll a task time, there are two options. One is task delay, that is faster but may drift. The second option is WD start plus semgif. This is more robust, you can say. So just look at this code, which is accurate only if the system clock is a multiple of 15 Hz. So in this my WDISR, I have given my WD start and sys clock rate get divided by 15/15, comma my WDISR and 0. Poll my device. Do not set the system clock rate too high because there is OS overhead in each clock tick. Use auxiliary clock to poll at the high speeds. I hope you all have an idea about auxiliary clock, main clock and SM clock and all. If you don't have an idea, we will discuss it little later. So on a summary, using signals for exception handling or signal exit, see task restart, long jump. ISR have a limited context, no blocking, no IO system calls, and this is how polling with timers. See, on the top you have interrupt time and task, on the bottom you have task time. Low speed or WD timer, task delay or WD timer plus semgif, and high speed or auxiliary clock, whereas task time is not specified. So we summarized the whole stuff. We went through the signals and what are all the options available in that, and do's and do nots in the signals, and then we went with the interrupt, how to handle an interrupt. We saw how to, based on the priority levels, how to distinguish between tasks and interrupts, and then we came into the watchdog timers, creating watchdog timer and creating watchdog timer and implementing it, starting the watchdog timer and then stopping watchdog timers. More specifically, to cancel a previously started watchdog to deallocate a watchdog timer and cancel any previous start. These methods we look through. So we will see in the implementation how would we implement it in a live programs, which sessions finishes after my 2 to 3 sessions onto the shared memory. I hope you liked it, and thanks for your patience. Please subscribe our channel by clicking subscribe button. Thank you.